There is a secret that the world keeps from the aging empath. It is a lie that has been whispered into your ear by a culture obsessed with youth, speed, and superficial productivity. They tell you that 60 is a decline. They tell you that you are entering the twilight, that your relevance is fading, and that the best you can hope for now is a quiet, comfortable invisibility. But if you are an empath, if you are one of the rare individuals who has spent a lifetime vibrating at the frequency of everyone else's emotions, then 60 is not a descent. It is an unveiling. Carl Jung knew this. He identified that the life of the sensitive soul is divided into two distinct chapters, separated by a psychological equator that most people never cross consciously. You have spent the first 60 years of your life in the service of others. This was not a choice. It was a biological imperative. Your nervous system was built without the filters that normal people possess. When you walked into a room, you didn't just see the furniture or the faces, you felt the unsaid arguments, the repressed grief, and the hidden resentments hanging in the air like heavy smoke. You were a sponge. You absorbed the toxicity of your family, the stress of your workplace, and the collective anxiety of the world, and you processed it within your own body. You thought this was your duty. You thought that being good meant carrying the emotional luggage that others were too weak or too unconscious to carry themselves. You have likely spent decades exhausted, an ancient bone-deep exhaustion that sleep could never touch because it wasn't physical fatigue, it was spiritual drainage. You were the healer who was bleeding out while bandaging everyone else. You were the listener who had no one to hear them. You built your identity around being the one who understands, the one who forgives, the one who stays when everyone else leaves. And while this made you indispensable to others, it nearly destroyed you. You looked at the narcissists and the oblivious people around you, those who could move through life taking what they wanted without a second thought, and a part of you envied them. You wondered why you couldn't just be thick-skinned. You wondered if your sensitivity was a defect, a mutation that made you unfit for this harsh, sharp-edged world. But now you are crossing the threshold of 60, and if you pay attention, if you silence the noise of the culture and listen to the rhythm of your own blood, you will notice that the game is changing. Jung called this the enantiodromia, the tendency of things to change into their opposites. The extreme self-sacrifice of your youth is about to flip into a profound, sacred self-possession. The biology of the empath after 60 undergoes a metamorphosis that is as radical as the caterpillar dissolving into the butterfly, but far more violent and far more powerful. For the first time in your life, the no is becoming easier than the yes. You are beginning to experience a drop in your tolerance for inauthenticity. In your 30s and 40s, you would sit through the dinner parties, the draining conversations, and the hollow family obligations because you feared disconnection. You feared that if you stopped performing the role of the caretaker, you would be abandoned. But at 60, a new archetype is taking the wheel. Jung called it the senex, or the crone, not in the derogatory sense of the modern world, but in the ancient sense of the wise one. This archetype does not fear abandonment because it has finally found the company of the self. You are realizing that the fatigue you felt all those years was not because you were doing too much work, but because you were doing work that did not belong to you. You were metabolizing the shadow of your lineage. You were feeling the feelings your parents refused to feel. You were crying the tears your partner couldn't cry. But the contract is ending. Nature, in its infinite intelligence, dictates that after 60, the energy that was directed outward in the service of the tribe must now turn inward in the service of the soul. This transition is terrifying at first. It feels like a loss of identity. Who are you if you are not the helper? Who are you if you are not the one fixing everyone's problems? This is the void. This is the silence. But it is in this silence that the healed empath gains the first of the great gifts, the power of discernment. In your youth, your empathy was a flood. It drowned you. You couldn't tell where you ended and another person began. You let vampires in because you saw their wounded inner child and thought you could save them. But the post-60 empath develops a laser-like clarity. You still feel everything that never goes away, but you no longer absorb it. You can look at a drowning person and understand with profound compassion that you cannot swim for them. You can witness suffering without becoming the suffering. This creates a formidable presence. People might start telling you that you've changed. They might say you've become hard or distant. They are wrong. You haven't become hard, you have become solid. You have moved from being water to being ice. You are still the same element, but you now have boundaries that can cut. This is necessary because the work you are meant to do in the final third of your life requires you to be a container, not a sieve. The universe effectively retires you from the job of emotional janitor so that you can be promoted to the role of elder. The early achievers, the ones who sprinted through their career goals and built their empires on external validation, often hit 60 and crumble. They look in the mirror and see a fading ghost. They panic because their entire worth was tied to their utility, their beauty, or their status. But you have been training for this era your whole life. You have been navigating the inner worlds, the dark nights of the soul, and the complexities of the human psyche while they were playing on the surface. They are just now encountering the questions you answered 30 years ago. The tables are turning. The skills of the empath: deep pattern recognition, intuition, spiritual resilience, and the ability to sit with the unknown are the only skills that matter in the face of mortality and legacy. Consider the concept of the golden shadow. We often think of the shadow as the dark, repressed parts of ourselves, our rage, our greed, our jealousy, and indeed, you had to integrate those to get here. But the golden shadow contains the parts of your brilliance, your power, and your authority that you repressed because you didn't want to threaten others. You dimmed your light so you wouldn't blind the people around you. You played small so others could feel big. After 60, the lock on the golden shadow breaks. The energy you used to suppress your own greatness is released. This is why so many empaths experience a sudden, late-blooming surge of creativity or leadership in their 60s. It is not new energy. It is reclaimed energy. You are done apologizing for your intuition. How many times in your life did you know something was wrong, a bad business deal, a deceitful partner, a dangerous path, but you let yourself be talked out of it by logic or by the gaslighting of others? You suppressed your knowing to keep the peace. The healed empath after 60 enters a state of radical trust in their own guidance system. You realize that your gut feeling was never a guess. It was data processed at a speed that logic can never match. Now, when you speak, you don't ask for permission. You speak from the authority of a witness who has seen the machinery behind the curtain of human behavior. This brings us to the specific mechanics of your transformation. Jung famously differentiated between the morning of life and the afternoon of life. The morning is for the ego. It is for achievement, expansion, and building the persona, the mask we wear to survive in society. But you, the empath, you struggled in the morning. You struggled because your mask never quite fit. You could feel the gap between who you were pretending to be and who you actually were. It was a friction that caused you decades of low-level anxiety. But now, as you stand firmly in the afternoon of your life, the mask is cracking. And while this might feel like a breakdown to the uninitiated, you know it is actually a breakthrough. This is the process of individuation. It is the peeling away of everything that is not you. The friendships that were based on convenience rather than connection, they are falling away. The obligations that were based on guilt rather than love, they are dissolving. You are undergoing a shedding in alchemy. This is the calcinatio, the burning away of impurities. It is painful. Yes, there is a grief in it. You are mourning the death of the person you thought you had to be. But underneath the ash of your old life, something indestructible is emerging. You are finding the diamond that was there all along, buried under layers of people-pleasing and societal conditioning. You are beginning to realize that your weakness was actually your unfinished strength. The sensitivity that made you cry at commercials or feel the physical pain of a stranger was not a flaw. It was raw, unrefined data. Now, at 60, you are learning to process that data without being consumed by it. You are becoming a conduit rather than a container. You let the emotions flow through you like wind through a screen, acknowledging them, understanding them, but holding on to none of them. This is the state of the wounded healer who has finally healed themselves. It is a rare frequency to inhabit. Most people will never reach this level of self-awareness. They remain trapped in the loop of the ego until the very end. Finding others who speak this language, who understand the geography of this inner landscape, is the great challenge of the late bloomer. We are building a sanctuary for those minds right here. If you recognize your own reflection in this analysis, if you are ready to stop apologizing for your depth and start inhabiting your power, take a moment to subscribe. It is not just a click, it is a silent signal to your own psyche that you are prioritizing truth over noise, and that you have finally found your tribe. Once you accept this new alignment, your relationship with time changes drastically. For 60 years, you felt like you were running out of time. You felt the pressure of the ticking clock, the anxiety of keeping up. But the healed empath breaks the linear conception of time. You enter Kairos, God's time. You realize that the soul does not age linearly. Your 60 years were not a delay, they were a gestation. You were growing roots deep into the dark earth so that your branches could eventually reach the highest heavens. The oak tree does not envy the speed of the grass. You are built for longevity, not for speed. This shift brings us to the most profound change of all, the transformation of loneliness into solitude. For decades, you likely felt a profound, aching loneliness. Even when you were surrounded by people, perhaps especially when you were surrounded by people, you felt isolated. This was because you were vibrating at a pitch that no one else could hear. You were broadcasting a signal that no one was receiving. You equated being alone with being unlovable. You filled the silence with noise, with service, with worrying about others, just to avoid the echo of your own empty room. But after 60, a miracle happens. The silence stops being empty and starts being full. You stop running from yourself and start running towards yourself. You realize that you are the person you have been waiting for. The need for constant external validation evaporates. You find that a quiet morning with a cup of coffee and your own thoughts is infinitely richer than a loud party filled with hollow conversation. This is not isolation. This is sovereignty. The energy vampires, the narcissists and the takers who used to flock to you because they smelled your open wounds suddenly recoil. They can no longer hook into you because you have healed the cracks where they used to enter. You have become untriggerable. Their drama, which used to become your drama, now bounces off your field. You watch their chaotic storms from the safety of your lighthouse. Compassionate but completely detached. You are no longer the victim of your empathy. You are the master of it. This mastery grants you a new role in the collective. You become the localized stabilizer. Jung spoke of individuals who, simply by their presence, lower the entropy of a room. That is you now. When you walk into a chaotic family gathering or a tense meeting, you don't need to say a word. Your nervous system is so regulated, so anchored in the self, that it acts as a tuning fork for everyone else. People calm down around you and they don't even know why. They seek your counsel not because you give advice, but because you give presence. You have become a space holder. You hold the space in which others can heal. simply by being who you are. This is the payoff. This is what the suffering was for. The seemingly wasted years, the tears shed in the dark, the feeling of being an alien on your own planet, it was all training. You were being forged into an instrument capable of holding a resonance that would crush a lesser spirit. You thought you were failing, but you were actually becoming capable. And this leads us to the final revelation. The ultimate gift of the empath after 60 is the power of synthesis. For your entire life, you may have felt like a collection of broken parts. You had a deep interest in psychology, a strange talent for gardening, a random obsession with history, and a knack for listening to strangers, to the logical, linear world. These things did not fit together. You were criticized for being all over the place. You were told you lacked focus, but Jung would correct them. He would say you were not scattered, you were constellating. You were gathering the ingredients for a recipe that no one else has ever cooked before. The early achievers specialize. They become very good at one narrow thing, but the late-blooming empath integrates. When you finally arrive at this stage, it does not look like a linear promotion. It looks like a sudden, geometric alignment of everything you have ever learned, all the wasted time, all the painful detours, all the abandoned hobbies suddenly lock into place to form a singular, unique competence. You realize that you needed the depression to understand the depth. You needed the isolation to develop the vision. You needed the sensitivity to read the room. This is your magnum opus, your great work. It is the complete expression of your soul's code. And because it is made of such diverse and authentic materials, it cannot be copied. You become a category of one. In a world of commodities and artificial intelligence, the synthesized soul of the elder empath is the only thing that remains irreplaceable. This is why you are still here. This is why you did not break when the weight of the world tried to crush you in your 30s. You are being preserved for this specific moment in history. Look around you. The world is suffering from a crisis of meaning. The old structures are crumbling. The logic of the machine is failing. The world does not need more efficient workers. It needs healers who have survived the fire. It needs elders who are not afraid of the dark because they have lived there. You are the bamboo that grew underground for 5 years, unseen and unappreciated, only to shoot up 80 feet in 6 weeks. The silence of your last few decades was not empty. It was pregnant. And now, you are ready to be born. Do not let the number 60 fool you. In the economy of the soul, you are just getting started. The first act was the rehearsal. The second act is the performance. So, stop looking back at the timeline that society handed you. Burn it. It was never yours to begin with. Your timeline is vertical, not horizontal. You are not moving toward the end, you are moving toward the center. The curtain is rising. The audience is waiting. And this time, you do not need a script, because you finally know who you are. We are gathering the scattered tribe of these rare souls right here on this channel. If you felt a resonance today, if you felt the lock on your own potential clicking open, then do not let this moment pass. Join us. Subscribe to this channel not just to watch another video, but to anchor yourself in this new reality. Let this be the signal to the universe that you are ready to begin the great work. Welcome to the afternoon of your life. The view from here is infinite.